Today I'm going to show you how to create some quote graphics like the ones you see on Bleacher Report. I'm going to do two different styles, one like this Damian Lillard graphic, and then another one, different style like this one. I'm going to show you how to literally recreate these, and then you can take these techniques and use them as your own. Let's start with the Damian Lillard one. First we're going to right click and copy the image, open up Photoshop, click Create New, and then Clipboard. It should have the exact dimensions that you need from the image that you just copied. And it's going to be in pixels, resolution 72 because it's all for the web. Alright, now we're going to paste it. I always like to name my layers so that I know what I'm looking at. Then I'm going to lock it so it doesn't move. Now we're going to try to find an image similar to the one on Bleacher Report. I just did a quick Google image search and found one that I liked. For this one I want to find an image that fits the quote, where he's a little bit emotional talking about his pride. So one where he's celebrating. Then I copied it, pasted it into Photoshop, converted it to Smart Object so that when I resize it up and down it doesn't lose too much quality. You're always going to lose a little bit of quality resizing an image up larger than its original size, but for this instance we're just going to roll with it. And then I renamed his image to Dame, which is his nickname. When you look at the original image, that looks like there's a black overlay at the bottom so that the text pops out a little bit more. We're going to grab the rectangle tool, drag it over to where we think it starts and stops. Click on Fill, click on Gradient, then click on the one that goes from 100 to 0% opacity. As you can see, it's a 0 opacity right there, but it goes to white. And the white looks weird, it doesn't look like the original image, so change that to black. Change the 100% to 90% opacity, because it doesn't look like it's a solid color at the very bottom if you look at the original image. And then we'll change that layer to gradient so that we know what it is. Now we got to find this text, or a style that's similar to it. I like to go to fontsquirrel.com, and then you can go to font identifier to identify the text that's in that image. All you have to do is upload that image. So we saved the original image from Bleacher Report. Now we're going to upload it and then drag this rectangle to just surround the text so that it highlights the text that you wish to match. Then we click Maturate it, and now it's going to pop up with all these different fonts that look similar to the original image. And if you can see, when you click on one of them, it really costs more than you think. So this one's about almost $400. So I'm going to go back up to the distributors, click on these different settings, and then go to only Font Squirrel and re-click Maturate it. But as you can see, it only pops up with 4 now, but all 4 of these are free and they're close enough for me. I'm okay with that. Looking at these, you can tell a difference in the apostrophes, and some of them are a little bit more curved around the edges of the font, but the one that I like that's closest to the original image is this one, Santana. So I'm going to download that, open it up in the folder, extract it. Looks like I already downloaded this. Then right click on all the true type font files and install them to my computer. Now we're going to go back to our image, click on the text tool or hotkey T, and then drag that over the quote from the original image. Start typing, just type what it said originally. Now I'm going to change the font to the one that we downloaded, which is Santana. I'm going to just adjust it. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. I'm going to move that word to the next line. And I'm going to change the leading. The leading is the space between each sentence, just to kind of match up the original. Then I'm going to click the text layer and the background layer and click Align Center. Now I'm going to type in the name of the player, Damian Lillard. This is his quote. I'm changing the text to Roboto just because it's similar, but it's also not as bold. And I'm going to move it over there. Check to see how it looks on our image. I'm going to align Damian Lillard to the rest of the text box from his quote. Now I'm just comparing it to the original. All right, now we're going to recreate that red outline. All we have to do is select the rectangle tool, drag the rectangle tool from where it looks like it starts and ends on the original image. And now we're going to change the fill to no fill, click on stroke, click on the color wheel, use the eyedropper tool, select the red from his jersey. Let's make that stroke bigger from 1 to 6. And then rename that layer to red box. And I'm just going to select that red box and background layer and center align them so that's perfect vertically and horizontally. Now I'm going to move all this text up a little bit. It just looks too close to the line at the bottom. It looks pretty good. And I'm just going to lock those layers so I can't mess with them while I'm editing the other parts. Now I want to erase or mask out that red line that's over Dame's face. So we're going to zoom in a little bit. We're going to click on Dame, his layer, do the quick selection tool. Select his face as good as we can, but sometimes it's a little bit tricky when there's other colors that are similar to what you're trying to select. This one's not as easy. Try that again. It's kind of selecting some similar colors surrounding his head. I don't usually like to use the lasso tool for this type of thing, but I'm just going to go ahead and do that. And then hold Alt to deselect that last part. And it's good enough for what we need to do right now. Press Ctrl-Shift-I to invert the selection so we're not selecting his head anymore. Now click on the red box layer. We're going to have to unlock that. And then click that layer mask button at the bottom. Now it basically erased that part that's going over Dame's head. But as you can see, it didn't really delete it completely. So if you wanted to erase more of it or add more back in, you can just draw back onto the layer mask to get that part back by using white or black with the brush tool while the layer mask is selected. This is important because if you were to erase this with the eraser tool, you can't really get that back unless you were to undo like multiple times, but you don't want to risk losing it. Now I'm going to recreate the quotation. We're going to have to use a different font because the font style that we used didn't have a similar shape to it. Georgia looks good enough for this tutorial. Now I'm going to select the red from the rectangle to match it. And then resize this, move it to about where it's supposed to be. I always like to make everything perfect when I align stuff, so everything's going to be aligned to the left. I'm going to drag a ruler out from the left so it's all aligned perfectly. I think it looks pretty good. Now I'm going to create photo credit. This is really just for tutorial purposes, but you always want to credit whoever you downloaded an image from, especially if you're using it commercially. I feel like this image is too distracting. Your eye doesn't really get drawn to the quote as much as the whole image. So now I'm going to find a different image of Dame. This one looks a little bit cleaner because the background is a little bit blurred out and he's still pretty pumped up. So I'm going to paste that in here, resize it so it fits the frame. And then I'm going to move the photo credit to the left. Don't forget to save your Photoshop document. You never know when your computer's going to mess up on you. You might lose everything. I'm going to drag this out a little bit more so that his head goes over where that mask was, so he fits the frame a little bit better. And this is where we can change the layer mask by just clicking on the layer mask for that red box. I'm going to duplicate it just so that we have two different options, and I'm going to rename it red box 1 and 2. Select that layer mask for number 2, and then use the white. Turn off the first one so we can see what we're looking at, and then redraw this layer mask so it fits this new image better. That looks pretty good. I'm going to zoom out, it looks good, and I'm going to duplicate some of those layers. All the layers, all the text layers and the gradient layer and everything from our first image. We're going to get a little bit more organized here. Unlock all the layers so that we can edit everything. I'm going to select all the duplicates. Press Ctrl G to group everything. And I'm just going to name it V2, like version 2. I'm going to select all the original layers. Press Ctrl G to group everything, rename it to V1, version 1. And now we can turn the group on or off and compare them. I think version 2 looks better, it's cleaner. It puts you more into the mindset of Damian Lillard rather than the event itself, and it puts more emphasis on the quote. Press Ctrl S to save. Alright, now we're going to move on, and I'm going to show you how to create this graphic. So we're going to copy that, paste it into Photoshop. I'm going to resize this just a little bit. Rename that to reference layer. Lock it so that we can't manipulate it. I'm going to drag a rectangle over Dirk and Wade as a clipping mask. I'm going to change that layer to photo mask, so that's going to be where we put the photo and clip it to that. Then I'm going to drag a white rectangle over that photo mask, so as you can see, this is how the layout's going to be. I'm just going to rename that layer to text box, since that's where the quote is going to go. Using the text tool, click and drag, and now just type out that quote. I'm going to move some words to the next line so I can match the structure of the original quote graphic. Let's increase the font size now. That looks about right. Then we'll line it up to the left. Drag that text box so we can see the whole quote. There's one little thing though, if you notice the quotation marks are inside the box, but if you look at the original image, the quotation marks are outside and all the text is left aligned. I'm going to move the cursor to the left of the quotation marks and then hold Alt and click the left arrow to move the quotation marks outside of that text box. And then we can do that for other words or sentences to make sure that everything's completely left aligned in this text box. Then I'm going to change that to a thicker version of the font. Then I'm going to make everything look as close to the original as possible. Now I'm just going to use the text tool and type out that bottom part. Move it to about where it should be. Looks pretty good. Now I think it looks close enough to the original and good enough for me. I just want to left align everything. Now just pull a guideline out from the rulers and let's left align all the text. Now the basic layout is done. Now we just need to find an image to fill out that block. For this tutorial, I'm just going to do a quick Google search, but you always want to make sure that you have the rights to use the photo if you're going to use this on your brand, or especially if it's something commercial. Now I'm going to resize the composition so I can paste the image and resize it a little bit and not lose too much quality. Alright, now copy paste and then bring it up. Press 6 on your number pad to lower the opacity to 60% so we can overlay the image and match it up so we can see what's under this image, and so that we can line it up to get the same layout as the original. And then we'll press Control T to resize this and move it over. With the Dirk Wade layer selected, hold Alt and left click the layer below it, which is our photo clipping mask. As you can see, if you resize the image, it stays within that clipping mask. Now we're going to try to get that red overlay look they were going for. There's a couple different ways we could do this, and I'm going to show you the first way that I think we could do this. So I'm going to drag a rectangle on top of that layer. I'm going to change the color to a red that looks pretty similar to that overlay that they used. And then I'm just going to clip it to that photo mask so that we don't have overlay on top of the white rectangle outside of it. And then holding Shift and the plus and minus on your keyboard will let you cycle through the different types of layer modes. I think this is looking pretty close. But now I'm going to use the eyedropper tool and see, it looks like the shadows are pretty blue, more than normal. And which is not the effect that we currently have. We kind of just have a red overlay, and the shadows on ours are closer to black than anything else. So we're going to try method 2. Using a new gradient map layer, we're going to select that gradient, change the colors. The gradient map tool is going to allow us to kind of change the colors of the original image to some of the like extreme lights and darks. So it's going to replace those shadows with what we select. We're going to select the dark blue to kind of replace the darks, like the blacks and the shadows. And so now we're going to select the red as like the main overlay color on all the lighter parts of the image. And it's looking pretty close. Yeah, I think that looks a lot better than just the red rectangle that we chose earlier. I'm just gonna change this red to be a little bit softer. It's not perfect, but it looks a lot closer than the first method that we used, and I think I'm pretty happy with it. And then we're just gonna type that text down at the bottom. It's like the photo credit. The font that they used looks kind of like Bayboss, but I'm just gonna go with Roboto for the sake of this tutorial. You can use whatever you want. But I think we got the general idea of how to create this quote graphic here. It's a little bit more abstract than the first one, but when it comes down to it, it's really pretty simple to recreate these images. It's just a bunch of squares and masks and some basic effects. And we created this in a way that we can always modify it later without losing quality or losing the effects that we created or losing the original image. So now we're going to save these images. If you're going to upload this to a website, you're going to want to save this for web. At 100 quality, the image size is 380K, which the higher that it is, the slower that your website's going to load, and no one wants that. So I usually lower it to about 60, and that hit the sweet spot to about like 150K, which is pretty good for the internet. But if you're going to upload this to social media, then you're going to want to keep it at 100, because usually sites like Facebook will compress those images in addition to any compression that you already did, so it's going to lower the quality even more. So just save it at 100% if you're uploading this to social media. Instagram does have a limit to about like 7 megabytes, but that's pretty big. It's always nice to have these templates for different scenarios, like different moods that you're trying to go for. You know, if you're Bleacher Report and Dame just hit a game-winning 3, you have that ready to just copy paste, change the text, and save it really quick so you can post it to social media. Or maybe you already have some that you created beforehand that you're ready to post at any time. If you liked this tutorial and you want to see more, like this video and subscribe for some more tutorials coming soon.